Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Twin Reads podcast. I'm David Gonzalez, and I'm joined by my brother, Daniel Gonzalez. They say that twins have a telepathic connection, but when it comes to the NFL, our reads could not be any more different. So we're here to break down the league from two different perspectives that once shared a room, but rarely share a sports opinion. Daniel, talk about this podcast and what you're excited about, because obviously this is a relaunch. We were doing Double Take, a sports podcast. We had Stephen Savage join us in that show. We were doing sports, but now we're focused and we're getting to the things that that we really know about. Yeah, I mean, I think getting back into the NFL season, I mean, it's about to kick off. The draft is a couple weeks away. I think there's been a lot of moves in this offseason. I'm excited to talk through those and to figure out like what your thoughts, because we've had a little bit of conversation, but we wanted to save a majority of those takes for this show. So for me, I'm just excited to talk football again. We've been trying to do this for a couple weeks now, and we just couldn't find the timing, just with new jobs and everything like that. And so just really excited to get back to it. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on a lot of things, and I'm excited to get some things out as well. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be an exciting show, and like you said, there's things that we have kind of going on in us. Daniel got a new job. I got my sick puppy over here. Well, she's actually 14 years old, but so I have to watch her kind of 24/7 because of some things she has going on. So, I mean, like Daniel said, we had some things kind of going on, so we couldn't record when we wanted to a couple weeks ago. But let's hop right into shockwaves, which are surprising signings and trades. So the legally tampering period has opened as of a couple weeks ago, and there was a bunch of notifications kind of going on at it. Some moves kind of made sense on paper, but then there's some that we just did not see coming. I think the first thing that we definitely have to talk about is the Baltimore bamboozle, which is Max Crosby. He was traded to Baltimore, but then due to his physical and him failing in that and a couple of other things, the Ravens ended up backing out of the deal and then signing Trey Hendrickson instead. It sent shockwaves across the NFL because based on that move and that trade, other teams launched and did some other different things because they're like, Max Crosby's not on the table anymore. And I think even the Raiders made a couple of moves that they just were like, what is going on? But Daniel, talk to me about Max Crosby not going to Baltimore and ultimately looks like he's going to be staying in Las Vegas. Yeah, I mean, it's going to depend on ultimately who you believe. Do you believe the Ravens side of the story, which is like, hey, he's probably going to be good for this year and next year, but in 3 or 4 years, what is that knee going to be? What they're saying is there seemed to be something degenerative about that knee. And for them to trade, 2 first-round picks for him? Yeah, I think so. It didn't, like, if he's only going to be good for 2 years, you're talking about 2 players that are going to probably help your football team, and Baltimore drafts pretty well. So 2 players for the next 10 years for 1 player who's only going to last 2 years. They've got, I assume from what they saw, they got cold feet and decided, hey, let's just go ahead and sign Trey Hendrickson. We don't have to give up a pick for it. Especially this year, I think they had the 14th overall pick. So for me, I mean, it's not the way that I would want to do business if I'm the Baltimore Ravens, because this will signal to other teams, hey, maybe you can't be trusted. But there are going to be some teams that are going to be, desperate enough to trade with Baltimore. So I don't know if that really has a leg to stand on. But based on what they said, if all that stuff is true, then I would be fine with it, especially when you get to keep those first-round picks and you just get to sign a guy. Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing for me in just thinking through just this kind of trade was, is Baltimore really at fault here when in backing out of this deal? I mean, if you're looking at a knee after someone, has a significant injury and you're looking at it, you're like, hey, this is not the easy fix that we thought that it was going to be. There could be some lingering effects to this injury. That do we really want to give up 2 first-round picks? I think Baltimore has all the ability in the world to back out of a trade following a physical. Like, to me, if the goods are damaged, you don't just be like, oh well, and pay a ton of money for it.
Yeah.
And that's what Baltimore was going to have to do. And so I think that they did what I think everyone would have done if they were in that situation, which is to back out of the deal. It was unfortunate that several teams made some moves. It was just it was just weird and bizarre, not normal. But I don't blame Baltimore for kind of backing out of that deal, given of the extent of the injury, what they thought was what was going to happen.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
let's go ahead and let's move on to the Kansas City Chiefs. Signing Kenneth Walker, he joins Kansas City. His deal was 3 years, $45 million for him. Daniel, talk to me. Was this a good move by Kansas City, or do you think that they pay too much money for him? It's $15 million a year.
I mean, we got to see a little bit of what he could do if he was the bell cow back, because him splitting time with Charbonnet last year, he didn't, get as many carries in the regular season as he would now that he's in Kansas City. To me, just to be honest, to me, this is kind of like a wash thing. I think they did pay too much money for him, um, just because, yeah, he was splitting time last year, and unless they can get another complimentary back to keep him fresh. Now, I will say he was very impressive in the playoff run once Charbonnet went down, but can he sustain that for a whole season? That's the only question that I would have. And to be honest, this is kind of what they had to do, because people were, saying they need to get a running back. They need to get a running back, whether it was him or Jeremiah Love in the draft or another one of these backs in the NFL draft. So for them to go after Kenneth Walker, it kind of just says, hey, we're making the plunge. We're gonna make the deal to bring a running back over here. So I'm excited to see what that will do. Now, if they shore up that offensive line, I definitely think it could work. Take a little pressure off of Patrick Mahomes, because this may be even a hotter take, but like, I haven't been impressed with Patrick Mahomes the last 3 years in the regular season. His numbers have dipped, and he's looked kind of pedestrian in the regular season. Now he's turned it on in the playoffs when he's needed to, so like, you don't have to worry about that there. But part of me is like, are we ever gonna see that superhuman Patrick Mahomes in the regular season again? This move may allow him to do that if they can get the running game going.
Yeah, for me, it's hard for me when we're having the Patrick Mahomes conversation, because yes, has his statistics gone down and his level of production gone down? Yeah, but so has the talent on the field. Like, he doesn't have any real elite wide receivers. I think we had expectations about Rashid Rice and what he could do. And Xavier Worthy is kind of the same deal. But when you don't have a running game, which Patrick Mahomes, I don't think really has ever had in his career, and the entire offense is on you, and defenses are getting better, and they really don't have to worry about this kind of explosive big threat like a Tyreek Hill was, or even a Travis Kelce when he was in his prime. Like, Patrick Mahomes needs some more help and to kind of divvy out some of the attention. And so I think Kenneth Walker is a good move. Now, this makes him the fourth highest paid running back in the NFL. Is he going to give you the production of a top 5 running back? I don't
Mhm.
know. Kind of like what you said. He's been, and I've been a fantasy owner of Kenneth Walker, and he's been so
Yeah,
up and
so have
down.
I. Yeah,
So
up
much
and
so that
down.
I traded him away because I just couldn't, he just was not producing. Uh, is that now a mistake because he's going to Kansas City, where they're hopefully going to be running the ball more? Um, I think this makes things interesting. I think
Yeah, for
another
sure.
move for Kansas City that was pretty interesting was them trading for Justin Fields. If Patrick Mahomes is going to miss some time, but I also think this is a good development plan for Justin Fields. I think this works out
Yeah,
for
I
him as
agree.
well.
Mhm.
New York is just a terrible place to go and
Oh,
be an
yeah.
NFL quarterback. Like, the Jets are just so bad at developing quarterbacks, and at this point, developing really, really good teams. And so I think it's great that he gets out of the situation. You could say the same thing about Justin Fields in Chicago. I'm not
Yeah.
necessarily a Justin Fields supporter, but
I think that this is probably his best opportunity to
Oh,
actually
yeah.
develop into an NFL quarterback. But what are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree. I think that as we've seen reclamation projects take place in the NFL and the last few kind of being successful, you think about Sam Darnold, you think about Baker Mayfield, and there's one more that I was missing. Geno Smith a couple years back.
Well, I think we're about to talk about one of them, but
Daniel
like
Jones,
Malik
that's
Willis,
him too.
or I was going to say Malik Willis too with Green Bay.
Yeah. So like you look at all those, and now you kind of what I'm liking is teams are giving second looks at these quarterbacks who have shown promise because Justin Fields at times has shown promise. You think about what he did in Pittsburgh and keeping that team afloat, playing pretty well out there. I know he didn't stay, but that was enough to kind of say, hey, if we surround him with the right coach, even the right quarterback to show him, those types of things, we're learning that is actually being successful now. So I'm in favor of it. I'm hoping that he learns a lot from Patrick and from Andy. And eventually we hear maybe next year, maybe the year after that, like, hey, maybe Justin Fields is ready to take on an NFL team. Well, that remains to be seen, but I'm excited at the prospect. I think it was a great situation. Like you said, him getting out of Chicago, him getting out of New York was the best thing for him. Now he's going to a stable franchise with a good head coach, good offensive-minded head coach. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Malik Willis going to the Dolphins, Daniel Jones getting a massive $88 million extension from the Colts, despite his injury history. I think Malik Willis going to the Dolphins, I like that move. I think I would have liked it better if Mike McDaniels might have still been the coach because of just the offensive mind that he is. But I think Malik Willis has shown that under a good coordinator, under a good coach, this guy can be an NFL starting quarterback. And I'm not saying that he's better than Jordan Love, but I would have been interested to see more run with Malik Willis as the quarterback. The thing about Daniel Jones, I do not like this decision by the Colts.
Really?
I don't. Because we all know when injuries like this happen, quarterbacks are rarely ever the same. And the thing about Daniel Jones is that part of his the thing about him that made him at least someone that you would consider having on your roster, because let's be honest, no one saw Daniel Jones having the season that he was having at all. Now, Shane Steichen is proving, Anthony Richardson was a terrible choice by him to go after. But Daniel Jones in his system looked really, really good. But I don't know. There was also some inconsistencies with Daniel Jones at the back half of the year.
Yeah,
so now you take away his athleticism. Is $88 million really how much you want to pay this guy? And I don't remember how much is it per year, but I'm assuming it's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I can look it up. But like what I was saying about, my thoughts on that too is I agree with you. Kind of like later, the back half of the year, they were struggling, and he was still healthy. It's a 2-year, $88 million deal, which with incentives, it's $100 million. So, I mean, it's a $50 million guarantee and $60 million guarantee for an injury. But yeah, I mean, he did not look very good in the back half of the year. I think he was playing some better teams, but yeah, I mean, it's a 2-year deal. They're not really paying a lot of people right now. So maybe this is something that, hey, they want to take a chance. But like you said, an Achilles injury. Was it Achilles or ACL? I think it was Achilles, right?
Yeah, I think it was an Achilles injury.
So, that's kind of been a 2-year injury historically over the past couple of years. I mean, I don't hate it, but I think we'll just see what he does this year, coming back from injury. But, this is a chance for them to take the flyer. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, he finished the year top 8, like finished 8th in QBR. So, yeah, and it was an Achilles tendon, like a torn right Achilles tendon injury. So, I mean, I don't know. I just don't think you've seen enough from Daniel Jones to give him $44 million. I don't think you've seen enough. Was that for sure his best season? Yes. But has he ever put 2 years in a row of doing that?
I mean, I do like Shane Steichen, though. Like, I do like Steve Steichen.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think that time will tell, but I just don't know if this is a good move by the Colts. But at this point, what choice? I mean, you had no other choice but to sign Daniel Jones. I just don't think that he's worth that much money. I could be wrong because I prefer Daniel Jones over Anthony Richardson. I think everybody saw enough from him to at least say that. But I don't know if you could say anything more than that. But I don't know. It's something to keep a lookout for. Now, here's the last thing that I think was a big trade in the NFL. The Denver Broncos landing Jalen Waddle, I think was a great move. It was a great decision. Finally, Bo Nix has another option at receiver. I think Cortland Sutton's still on the team. Then you have Jalen Waddle. But Daniel, talk to me about this move. Where does this put Denver in terms of the AFC? Does this move make them a top contender?
I mean, what this does is, I think last year, how Denver Broncos fans feel is, if Bo Nix is healthy, they're in the Super Bowl last year. Because they were still close to going to the Super Bowl with, I already forgot, Jarrett Stidham. So you add Bo Nix back. Now you have a pretty good number one wide receiver. Not a great number one wide receiver, but a good number one. Pair that with Cortland Sutton at the 2. And Bo Nix was doing all this without a true number one wide receiver. So for me, I think they were already a pretty good contender. Now this just reinforces that. And part of me is looking for them to be even better this year. You know, if Jalen Waddle can, settle in really well, gives him a deep threat because Bo Nix can launch it. So I'm excited to see what this is going to do for Denver. I think this is a good move for them. Now, am I happy at all that they had to give up for it? That remains to be seen, but they wanted their guy and they went and they got him.
How much did I'm looking at that right now. How much did they give up for Jalen Waddle?
I know that they at least gave up a first for this year, but I think they gave like additional draft compensation as well.
Yeah, so it was a 2026 first round pick, which was just the 30th overall, the 2026 third round pick, and then a 4th round pick swap.
Nah, I'm not mad at that then. I take it back.
I think it's a good, yeah. I mean, I like this move. I think it was hard. I think Jalen Waddle had, obviously, before teams started figuring out that Tua couldn't do more than just throw over the top and really just could not dissect a defense, really. I think that is what, kind of brought down Waddle's production. But I think once you put him, again, I'm not still 100% sold on Bo Nix. Like, I think he's around 16 to 18.
Really?
In terms of, yeah.
I'd say he's around 12 to 15.
Maybe 12 to 15 would probably be
just because, like, you look at back-to-back years, him going to the playoffs. This time, they were able to get to the AFC Championship, and his lack of weapons. He has a great offensive line, but the lack of weapons on the outside,
and he really doesn't have a running game. Yeah, you're right. I just think the consistency in the way he throws, he's an inconsistent thrower of the football. That's probably why he puts him probably further down on my list, is just because. But he's already he's extremely athletic. Extremely athletic. He can use his legs, and he's clutch.
When they've asked him to be
stretch, when they've asked him to be clutch, he's been clutch, and so I think this is good. I think this is good a good year to evaluate Bo Nix finally clearly, because now he has two guys, Courtland Sutton, Waddle. I think it's going to be great for him. Sean Payton's your offensive coordinator or your play caller. So I think this is good for Denver, and it puts them another step closer to where they want to go. But any other big signings or trades that you'd like to discuss? I think the one that's interesting to me is Tua going to Atlanta, because now you got Kevin Stefanski has something about left-handed quarterbacks. He had Dylan Gabriel last year. Now he has Michael Penix Jr. and Tua, all lefties. But I think that's going to be interesting for Tua. I think Miami cutting him was the best decision. I think that's what
it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt over the next couple of years.
Financially, it'll hurt him.
You're looking at a rebuild anyway.
You are looking at a rebuild anyway, and I don't know. This is not me trying to slander Tua, but just the comments that he made last year throughout the year.
Yeah.
Like, do I want him leading my locker room? And do I really want to be paying all that money and have him in my locker room? I think Miami, as much as it is going to hurt, but guess who also did that and it ended up working out for them? Denver. Denver did that. And they were back in the playoffs 2 years ago, and then they were in the AFC Championship last year. So I think if you have the right coach in there and you have the right quarterback, which, again, I'm a big fan of Malik Willis. So I think this is good for them. But it'll be interesting to see that moving forward. But let's move on to the scorecard. We're going through free agency winners and losers. Carolina made a lot of big moves to really shore up that defense. They got Jalen Phillips for $120 million, and then they got Devin Lloyd, stealing him away from the Dallas Cowboys. But Daniel, talk to me about Carolina. Are they winners in this free agency? Do you see them making a push in the NFC South?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you go with moves like this, it kind of shows, hey, we're ready to take the next step. I think last year they were very competitive. I mean, taking the Rams down the wire in that wild card game, was a great sign for Carolina. And so now you're going to shore up that defense. Hopefully these pickups work out, because they paid a lot of money for Jalen Phillips, and a lot of people said it was a big overpay, a big reach. So that one has to work out. So there's pressure on them to deliver this year. And, the Saints, they're probably going to be a little bit better this year. The Bucks, we're going to talk about them a little later. They lost a lot of pieces. Atlanta, new coaching staff, but they've got weapons. We'll see what happens at quarterback. Their defense wasn't that bad. So it is open. Am I ready to crown them the kings of the NFC South yet? I'm not sure. I gotta see what happens at the beginning of the year. But on paper, they look good.
Yeah, I mean, I think Carolina, you did what you're supposed to do. When you feel like you have your franchise quarterback because of the way that Bryce played, especially at the end of the year last year, the whole goal before you give him that new contract is, hey, let's give him an opportunity, especially on that defensive side of the ball. They were in a shootout with the Rams, but if they would have played better, things could have been different. And so I think they recognize that. They're moving in that direction. I think it's a good move for Carolina to pick up these guys. Like you said, it's a reach, but that's kind of free agency. Free agency is you kind of overpaying on guys and hoping that they pan out and still give you some good return back. I think that the 49ers are also they made a couple of moves that I really liked. Really, just the one big one was getting Mike Evans. Now, he has the injury bug as well. So that's a concern. That's an opportunity and a chance that you're taking. And I think they're losing Ayuk as well. But
they're still trying to figure out what they want to do with him. Like, is he a draft day trade that they use? It's just a really confusing situation, the whole Brandon Ayuk thing. Now, what I like the fact that Brock has somebody who he can just throw it up there and someone can go make a play and grab it, because the thing about Brock will put the ball in harm's way if he feels like he can take a shot. And so Mike Evans being a guy who will go and fight for those contested balls, that's a good thing. like you said, the injury bug, his age is not something I'm a fan of just because the whole goal of this offseason was for the 49ers to get younger and faster. And they went older and slower with almost every pickup that they made. Like they're doing the opposite of what they said that they wanted to
So you
do.
don't like this? You don't like these moves?
I think they're okay. One thing that I don't like is the fact that they did nothing to shore up that offensive line.
Mm.
They did nothing to shore up their offensive line. They could not run the ball last year at all. That was one of Christian McCaffrey's worst running seasons. I know he had a fantastic receiving season,
Yeah.
but if you look at his rushing numbers, he was under 3.5 yards a carry, I believe. He was
Wow,
bad.
Yeah.
So for me, Mike Evans is a nice pickup. That's not going to fix your offense. That's not going to fix your team. If the offensive line is not going to if the offensive line is not really going to improve, and Mike Evans is your number one receiver, and Ricky Pearsall, who can't stay on the field, and Jawan Jennings, who thinks he's a number one wide receiver,
He's pretty good.
to me, I don't think that's enough weapons for them to compete. We just talked about Patrick Mahomes. Brock Purdy's in the same boat, if not a worse one. So they're okay. I just don't think it's going to move the needle a whole bunch.
Yeah. Well, since we're talking about that division, let's move over to Tampa Bay. They lost a lot of guys to retirement. But do you think that Tampa Bay has really taken a step back in this offseason?
I think they have. Now, what I do think is with the Mike Evans, what they were thinking is, hey, we have Ibuka, who played really well last year. He's our new number one. We have a lot of young guys who Baker really likes. Now, the thing is, you got to figure out what happened with Baker last year. Was it because he was injured, the reason why his play dipped in the middle of the season towards the end? You got to find out what that question is, because Baker did not look good. And the fact that Mike Evans took less money to go play in San Francisco with Brock versus more money to play with Baker, I'm not saying that's anything, but I'm saying that's a little weird.
You gotta stir in the pot a little bit.
They're saying that's not the reason why, but you're taking less money to go play with Brock Purdy than staying in Tampa Bay.
I mean, I think there's some legitimacy to that, because like when you think of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you think of Mike Evans, and like, why would you leave and finish your career somewhere else? Unless, Mike Evans just wasn't really feeling it in Tampa Bay. But I think there might be some things to that. Again, Baker,
maybe a Kyle Shanahan thing too.
Maybe
like he wants to go play for Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, but this is the second time that Baker has struggled due to injury. Like,
this is going to be a really big year for him.
But it always is a big year for Baker. And we've talked about this multiple times in terms of Baker Mayfield. When we have no expectations for him, he plays extremely, extremely well. To start last year, he was balling out. We were having conversations about him being the league MVP early in the year. And then as soon as we started talking about him, he dipped. And it happens every single time we talk about Baker Mayfield. I think that was one of the big things about our podcast, our previous podcast, is like Savage would like rail on Baker Mayfield, saying, he's a bust of a quarterback. Then he would have a fantastic season. Then next year comes on, he starts the year playing off well. Savage is on the podcast. He'd be like, hey, I was wrong about Baker Mayfield. And then he like plunges back into what he was. Everyone gave up on Baker Mayfield after his stint in Carolina. And even like with the Rams, he goes with Tampa Bay, and people are like, we don't know if he's going to be any good. I mean, this is where probably like he's following Tom Brady. Like, this is not going to go well. And then he plays well. So, it's just, Baker's just an interesting quarterback to kind of talk about. But I think for Tampa, they lost pieces. It'll be interesting to see what they do in the draft as well. But I don't know. Maybe with the new OC, I think that was probably an issue too. Like Liam Cohen, it's hard to replace.
Yeah,
Because
I mean,
sometimes what happens is that you get coordinators who do good, and then once defenses kind of figure out what your initial game plan, can you adjust? Can
mhm.
you change?
Maybe, yeah.
I maybe that's what was going on. Maybe that's why Baker struggled on top of the injury. But
I mean, losing Liam Cohen was a big thing. Look at what happened last year with Trevor.
yeah.
You know, he turned
Yeah.
that team around in 1 year.
Mhm. I think a couple of teams also that were losers in this free agency period is the teams that you would normally think of. I think for me, Cincinnati is one of those teams that just they did nothing. They did absolutely nothing, and
They
then
got
you
no
lost
money.
a
Their
defensive
quarterback took all
player.
the money.
I don't know what Joe Burrow's cap hit is.
It's the biggest in the National Football League, I believe. Or
I'm a
he's the quarterback who takes the most cap percentage. But again, like you said,
his
it's
cap
also a
hit is
Cincinnati
46
thing as
million.
well. You said what?
46 million. 46 million is his cap hit.
That's not terrible. What
Yeah.
percentage is that?
16.5.
It's lower than it was last year.
Interesting. Well, you're gonna find out. Daniel's got some feelings about Joe Burrow, which will.
Oh yeah, I let Savage know about it too.
Oh, did you text him?
No, whenever we were driving up to Altus, we had a conversation about Brock Purdy, and then we had a conversation about Joe Burrow.
What'd you say about Joe Burrow specifically?
I mean, I feel like we're about to get into it a little bit later on, unless you want to
Okay.
do it now.
I mean, it's up to you. We can do it now, or we can do it later.
Well, here's my thing about Joe Burrow. Bro, when the last time Joe Burrow did anything, I was getting married. Or it seemed like. It is 2026. Man has not been in the postseason in about 3 to 4 years, it feels like. And he has two of the best wide receivers in the league at his number 1 and number 2. And you can't make the playoffs? And a big majority of the reason why you can't make the playoffs is because the first 4 weeks of the season. Now, last year he did a great job. They went 3-0 before he got injured. But historically, it's his slow starts that put him in that situation to begin with. And all I hear from people about Brock Purdy, these other quarterbacks who have lesser talent, they expect them, well, if you're this guy, you need to elevate your team. That's funny because Joe Burrow has not made the playoffs. A lot of it has to do with injury, which is another reason why you can't trust him. And then Patrick Mahomes does what he does last year, and the number one reason people say he doesn't have enough help around him. Is Patrick Mahomes not supposed to be an elite quarterback? Is Joe Burrow not supposed to be an elite quarterback? We place so many expectations on guys we don't consider elite, but we don't hold the quarterbacks who are supposed to be elite accountable. How does that make sense? So for me, it's just this fatigue of people continuing to push these quarterbacks as they're the best quarterback, second best, third best quarterback in the league. They get to underperform while having the talent around them, at least offensively, if not defensively, to help shore up whatever misgivings or other things that they don't have. But we want to hold young, lesser quarterbacks, for lack of a better word, tier 2 quarterbacks. We hold them to a much higher standard than we do these stars. And I think that for me, that I just get tired of that because we give passes to the guys that we like rather than actually judge them accordingly. That's my biggest thing. For me, last year, Joe Burrow was on the hot seat for me of like, dude, you better do something this year. He got hurt, but I feel like that's going to be every year now. That's going to be every year.
Yeah, to me, it's more of the injury thing of Joe Burrow that has kind of knocked him down on my top 10 list. It's not because of his play, because in 2024 when he put on a full season of work, he had a top 6 offense. And they were averaging 27.8 points. Their defense was just so bad. And that's why they didn't make it to the postseason, in my opinion, because like even as an elite quarterback, again, and we're talking about how we evaluate the quarterback position. Everyone is different, you know. But for me, like I give allowances for offenses struggling on particular games, and for defenses, you know, do their job until your offense can kind of figure it out. But so for Joe Burrow though, even last year he got hurt. The offense wasn't as explosive. I think T. Higgins was hurt for a couple of games as well. But when you have like a front office who, even before like Joe Burrow got the contract, they really weren't doing much at all. And that's just kind of how the front office works, is that they just don't do anything. And like you said, like maybe that's because of Joe Burrow's contract. He's taking 16.5% of the cap for this season. And so it's really hard to do anything when you have all that money wrapped into him. But like at the same time, like you can't do anything like at all. That's just hard for me to believe that you just at least make some moves or do something to try. And I think Cincinnati's just at a point to where they just don't try. I think Philadelphia is another team as well that they lost a lot of players. They lost Blankenship. They lost Dean. They lost Phillips. Because the cap is an issue and the cap is a problem. So you can't necessarily keep anyone. The Cowboys took Christian Parker to be their DC. So that was another thing that maybe you could see. The only reason why I say that is because when the Cowboys lost Al Harris to Chicago, our secondary did struggle.
Yeah.
So I think there is some, when you have someone working with your secondary and he's gone, like that's a big deal. And so I think Philadelphia is a little bit worse for wear when it comes to this. But what do you think about Philadelphia?
Yeah, I mean, what I feel, and this is not to be a homer or anything, what I do think is that the Cowboys this offseason, the gap between the two teams in terms of talent has now gotten a bit closer. You know, you talk about last year, oh my gosh, they have this much talent. But after the many exits that they have, and like what you said, Christian Parker, him coming to Dallas and bringing some new innovative defensive schemes, you would hope, to me, it makes that competition a little bit closer to where now if Dallas can hit on some draft picks in the draft, that defensive line looks really, really good right now. If they can get some linebackers,
it's the big concern.
It is a big concern, but I mean, Christian Parker's a defensive, he was a defensive backs coach. So like him working with our secondary and, with Deron Bland, some of these young guys, I feel like the gap is a little bit closer than it was last year. So I would agree that the Philly's got some work to do. Now, Howie Roseman has been notorious for the past few seasons of making some moves, making some splash moves here and there to kind of, elevate the team a bit. So I'm not going to completely say, man, I think they're done because of their cap situation. I feel like they can still make a couple moves and make it work. So I still trust Howie Roseman.
Yeah. Here's the interesting thing to me. We also have to talk about the Eagles taking forever to find an OC. And then they got Sean Manniman. I don't even know how to say his name. That's how just unknown he is. He was in Green Bay. He was the quarterback's coach for Malik Willis, seeing his development, and Jordan Love. So I think that's something to take note of. But like now, you're calling plays. Now, this is me trying not to be a homer. I think there is something to be said of if you can kind of bring out what's the best for your quarterback and make their production go up. Again, Malik Willis improved so much in my eyes. Now, maybe he was always that quarterback, and then just in Tennessee was just a terrible situation for him. But Sean seems to have the ability, or at least maybe that's what the Eagles are hoping for. He has the ability to put his quarterbacks in the best positions to be the most successful. When Jalen Hurts is put in the best position to be successful, we know what Jalen Hurts can be. Jalen Hurts can be a top 5 quarterback. Now, is his mobility, has it gone down? I think there's some concerns with that. But if he can be mobile still, and we know that he has a great deep ball, like maybe Sean puts Jalen Hurts in the best position to be successful, you know? Maybe that is what happens. And so, but even then, like just the process of them going through all of that has reasons for you to be concerned. And so I think for Philadelphia, their offseason has been concerning at best.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Now, could things kind of work out anyway because of the talent they still have on that roster? Yeah, I think so, but I think it's something to look at. And so staying in the NFC East, it's time to bring it home. We're closing out the show by looking at the star here on the 214, which is our Cowboys segment as Cowboys fans. Here are a couple moves that the Cowboys have made in the offseason that we have to look at. So they did trade for Rashawn Gary to Green Bay, taking him away to be kind of the centerpiece of the pass rush following the departure of Micah Parsons. You have George Pickens, who is franchise tagged, and we'll talk about that probably a little bit more in depth as it is unsure if he's going to actually participate in offseason workouts and things like that. But the Cowboys also picked up Jalen Thompson from the Arizona, a safety that they believe that he's going to bring. They think that he can kind of be the quarterback of the secondary, that he can kind of do things. He can play in the nickel, he can play in the dime, that he's a little bit versatile, and he's in a better position now that Donovan Wilson is no longer on the team. So that was kind of a big move. 3 years, $33 to $36 million. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a great move. They re-signed and extended Javonte Williams to be our running back, 3 years, $24 million. To me, this was the steal of free agency for the Cowboys. To get that level of production for $8 million a year was phenomenal. You do the opposite of what you did with Ezekiel Elliott coming off a great year where you pay him tons and tons of money, make him one of the highest paid running backs in the league. He's, I think, around 14 or something like that in terms of per year. So that was kind of a big move. They also signed a bunch of depth pieces like Tyrese Wheat, PJ Locke, Otito Obuna. They do trade Osa to the 49ers for a 3rd round pick. So they're loading up on draft picks as well. And, you know, some people will say Sam Howell is a good move because he's going to take Dak's job because Dak sucks. You know,
people are saying that?
Dude, I saw it on Twitter. I saw some people say, hey, guys, real ball knowers know that Sam Howell's overall a better quarterback than Dak
Then
Prescott.
they need to say that about Justin Fields and Patrick Mahomes, I guess, because
it's crazy, dude. It is absolutely crazy. It's nuts. But a lot of moves made for the Dallas Cowboys. Now that Odigizua is gone, Parsons is gone, Cowboys are rebuilding defense from the secondary. Daniel, how do you feel like our defense is going to look now with all these moves? Christian Parker is now our defensive coordinator. Do you see them being better than they were last year? And if so, how much better?
I do think they'll be better than last year. I would love to see them get some linebackers because I feel like the front four is pretty good. They just need some guys to play linebacker because that was kind of the really rough spot last year, having Kenneth Murray being, you know, the star linebacker back there. Just caused a lot of problems. So, I mean, if they're doing the right things. They're doing the right things. They're getting some depth where it's needed. They went and got a safety that they really needed to get. I think Kobe Durant is probably going to be a pretty good corner for, you know, just to bolster up the slot a little bit. I would love to see them jump from the 32nd ranked defense in the league to Can we be the middle of the pack this year?
I don't know, man. That might be too much
Can
of
we
a
be the middle of the pack this year? Because that offense, second year under, Shoddy and with Adams, I think the offense is going to be fine, even if we end up trading George Pickens or not. I feel like there's still going to be a really good offense. It's probably asking a lot, but can that defense be middle of the pack? If they can, we're in business. If not, then this is just going to be another 9-8, 10-7 season.
Yeah, I think what the Cowboys have to be careful of in the draft, they do not hit on defensive linemen, defensive tackles. They just don't. Now, maybe they can get some pass rushers, linebackers, other than Van Der Esch, and then Jalen Smith for maybe a short period of time. Like, can they pick up some linebackers? And I think there's some in the draft that we can pick up. Will they still be there when it comes time for pick number 12? I think that
as long as they don't come from Michigan, I'm all right.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think for me, what will be big is just who we decide to pick up in the draft. We need linebackers. We need some more pass rushers. We just need some more depth in the secondary. Like we really do. So if the Cowboys can do good in that, I think the Cowboys, maybe you're right. Maybe they can be middle of the pack. And if they're middle of the pack, this offense is going to be good enough to really, really play well. Their culture that they're building is fantastic. Again, I'm a big fan of Shoddy. I think that he's doing great things. And so I think that the Cowboys are going to be in good position here, but they got to hit on these draft picks. If they don't, it's going to be like another long year of being frustrated that the Cowboys aren't good enough, but it's Dak Prescott's fault because he's taking a bunch of money.
And you'd be wasting his prime. I think right now he's in his prime years. A little spoiler for when we finally do our top 10, segment. Dak is going to be up there in my list. Because of the level of production that he does have when he is healthy. And if we're taking his situation into account, in terms of front office, it's been a rough career for Dak Prescott in terms of like his defense not showing up in the playoffs, his head coach not doing enough to get the team started. Now, last year was a better year with Shoddy under the helm, but the defense underperformed tremendously, even when Micah Parsons was playing. And I think that was a year before that as well. And so, yeah, I mean, these next 2 years, I hate that it might be viewed as, well, we're rebuilding after the Micah thing, because these are 2 years that we're going to get of prime Dak, and I think they're going to be wasted.
Yeah. Which is funny because people told me that after 2023 that Dak couldn't get better than what he was. And Dak
He's one of the best quarterbacks in football. That's not a hot take. That's just what he is. The numbers prove it. And based on his situation and just the dysfunction that's happened around this franchise over the past couple of years, to get solid play from Dak, what more do you want him to do?
Well, you're going to have a lot of people give you some different kind of answers. Hey, why not choke in the playoffs? Which, I mean,
then why did Micah choke in the playoffs? We got again. This is again one of my frustrations is like we look at the quarterback, and we say that they suck, and we say other people on the team are better than him, yet he plays better than them. But those guys don't get any blame. We don't turn the script on them.
No, but I mean that's
like logically, people don't think Dak is any good. They don't think he's good. They think Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs, whoever you want to say, CeeDee Lamb, these guys, they're elite at their positions.
And also specifically with CeeDee Lamb, they're just like, man, CeeDee Lamb needs a real quarterback. But then in week one, But then in week 1, he drops 4 passes, including probably the game winner.
Yes. But there's no holding them accountable. They're just not any of that. So
Yeah.
to me, when people tell me that Dak should do more, well, you don't think he's any good. These guys that you think are elite, they're the ones who are also messing up and playing bad. But what are you going to say about them? You're going to blame the guy that you don't think is any good. Have that make sense for me. So I'm not trying to hear any of that.
Well,
I feel like if you think someone's a star player, they should play like a star player. And if you don't think a guy is good, I don't know what you expect from him.
yeah, I think this is interesting because, like, if you're a first-time viewer, Daniel has never really thought about like Dak Prescott in this way. Like he
I used to crucify him over things.
Yeah.
But it's gotten to a point where, like, kind of where a lot of people were with Tony Romo in the early part of his career. You think about that, and every time he throw a pick, it's Romo.
But then he doesn't remember it now. He doesn't remember
any of those things. It's because, like, you appreciate what you have when you know that you're coming to the end of it, and you look at all the other things that have happened in the midst of their career. You add context to everything, and you're just like, again, this, and we're probably going a little long about the Dak Prescott thing.
It's fine.
There's a couple years that we do where I give Dak a lot of the blame for losing playoff games. So that part is true. That is true.
22.
But there are a lot of other years where I'm not looking at Dak Prescott. I'm looking at Micah Parsons, who everyone thought was the next Lawrence Taylor, and he could not get this defense to make any stops. I'm also looking at that as well. And so, that's what I got to say about it. I'm glad Michael's gone, to be honest.
Yeah. But it's going to be interesting. I think this draft, like we've talked about before, is going to be good. It's going to be really important. We got the 12th pick. We got the 20th pick. And then we finally got a third rounder back in our pocket. So the Cowboys are going to be in a great position, hopefully, to do well. But we're just kind of have to see what they decide to do. But kind of in passing, flag on the play. NFL in flag football. It was crazy. It was insane. Turning back the clock, Tom Brady came out of the booth. OBJ came in, did his thing. But the Team USA absolutely just destroyed the pros.
Manhandled, bro.
And even that guy, I can't even remember what his name was. I had remembered it before, but I remember a couple years ago when they were talking about the NFL players doing better than Patrick Mahomes for the Olympics. They said, "Dude, I'm better than Patrick Mahomes." He was the MVP of this deal, and they dominated every single team. Now, Daniel, do you think this, like, the NFL stars can adjust? Because there seems to be, like, definitely a learning curve with playing flag football. It's not like the NFL. Do you think the NFL players can actually kind of handle the learning curve, or do you think that they're just not going to make the teams?
I think eventually they could. My thing is they shouldn't. You look at the Team USA team, they're already great. What you're going to add for an NFL player to be there is going to be minimum at best, because the guys that are playing on Team USA, they know how to play flag football. It's a different game. It's a different style. They know what moves to make. They can slide, kind of get around, do all the crazy things. And they're not down because this isn't tackle football. If they go slide on their knees, they're not down until you get the flag. That's what the NFL players ran into. But I think this is something that is just not, I don't think it's, not that it's not worth the NFL players' time. To me, I don't think they should do this. I think they already got guys that know how to play flag football. Let them do it. They're really great. They kicked your butts. So they're great at it. You're not great at it. Let them have it. I don't think the NFL players should try to make this team at all. I don't think anyone should try. Stick to what you know. Stick to the status quo, as they said in High School Musical.
If that doesn't age us, I don't know what will.
Yeah, I don't think they should even try.
Yeah, so the
Kudos to
guy that I
Team
was
USA. I'm glad they're representing us because they are phenomenal.
Yeah, Daryl Doucette was the quarterback who said that he was better than
He
Patrick
is
Mahomes when it comes
fantastic.
to flag football. He was the MVP, absolutely was great. He's already been invited to come in to be part of that training camp as well. So, I mean, Joe Burrow was like, "Yeah, I want to try and make the team."
Man, guy can't even win a flag football game. It's really rough out here for him, huh?
He did throw a pick six, so did Jalen Hurts as well.
Mhm.
It was kind of sad to see. I mean, it's an adjustment thing, Daniel. You know, Joe Burrow doesn't throw a ton of pick sixes. You know,
He doesn't win a lot of games either.
well, that's going to do it for us here on Twin Reads Podcast. If you enjoyed our reads on the league today, make sure that you hit that subscribe button wherever you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to join the conversation on social media. We want to hear who your biggest winners and losers are of the free agency period. You can also follow us on X, TikTok, and Instagram via the links in the description below. We'll see you soon to tell you whose read was right. But until next time, God bless.